Very urgent. Your soulmate is waiting for you to see this. Before they make a final decision. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because somewhere tonight, your soulmate is sitting quietly, staring into the distance, carrying a thought they can no longer ignore. A thought that has followed them for days. Weeks. Maybe even longer. A thought that keeps returning no matter how hard they try to focus on something else. And listen to this. The strange thing is that they never planned for any of this. They didn't wake up one morning expecting to feel this way. They didn't decide to spend their time replaying old memories. They didn't choose to carry unanswered questions. Yet somehow, here they are. Thinking. Reflecting. Wondering. And most importantly, waiting. I pour a lot of time and research into these videos to make sure you get the best information possible. If this video helped you out today, or saved you some time, you can support the channel directly through my Ko-Fi page by donating up to $120. It is a completely optional tip jar, but it means the absolute world to me and helps keep this channel independent. Link is in the description. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes the most important moments in life arrive quietly. Without warning. Without preparation. Without permission. They simply appear. Your soulmate feels like one of those moments has arrived. And listen to this. For a long time, they convinced themselves they could remain patient. That eventually everything would become clear. That eventually the confusion would disappear. That eventually they would stop thinking about certain things. Certain memories. Certain possibilities. Certain people. But instead of fading, those thoughts became stronger. Not louder. Deeper. More meaningful. More difficult to dismiss. And your heart needs this right now because genuine feelings often survive every attempt to ignore them. People can distract themselves. People can stay busy. People can pretend. Yet some emotions remain. Waiting. Patiently. Your soulmate has been discovering that firsthand. And listen to this. Recently, something changed. A realization appeared. Not a dramatic realization. A quiet one. The kind that slowly settles into the heart. The kind that changes everything without making a sound. They realize they have been carrying too much inside. Too many unanswered questions. Too many unspoken feelings. Too many thoughts left unsaid. And suddenly silence started feeling heavier than honesty. That realization surprised them. Because for a very long time, silence felt easier. Safer. Less risky. Less vulnerable. But now? Silence feels exhausting. Because your heart needs this right now, because there comes a moment when avoiding the truth requires more energy than facing it. Your soulmate has reached that moment. And listen to this. The closer they came to this realization, the more memories returned. Small memories. Simple memories. Moments that seemed ordinary when they happened. Yet somehow remained unforgettable. A conversation. A smile. A shared moment. A feeling they couldn't fully explain. The more they reflected, the clearer those memories became. Almost as if their heart was trying to remind them of something important. Something they overlooked. Something they underestimated. And your heart needs this right now because meaningful connections often reveal their importance long after they begin. At first, they seem ordinary. Then one day, you realize they were never ordinary at all. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that. And listen to this. One evening, while sitting alone, they asked themselves a question. A simple question. Yet a question that changed everything. Why am I still thinking about this? At first, they didn't have an answer. They tried explaining it logically. Tried finding practical reasons. Tried convincing themselves it wasn't important. Yet every explanation felt incomplete. Every answer felt insufficient. Because deep down, they already knew the truth. The truth wasn't complicated. The truth was emotional. And emotional truths are often the hardest to admit. Because your heart needs this right now because feelings rarely follow logic. They don't ask permission. They don't wait for convenience. They simply exist. Your soulmate was finally beginning to accept that. And listen to this. As the night grew quieter, another realization appeared. A realization that made their heart race. They realized they were approaching a decision. A final decision. Not necessarily about another person. Not necessarily about a relationship. A decision about themselves. A decision about whether they would continue hiding from what they truly felt. Or finally face it. That realization felt overwhelming. Because they knew one thing. Once the decision was made, there would be no returning to uncertainty. No returning to denial. No returning to pretending. And your heart needs this right now because every meaningful decision asks for courage. Not certainty. Not guarantees. Courage. Your soulmate is standing at that exact point. And listen to this. For days, they have gone back and forth. One moment feeling ready. The next feeling afraid. One moment wanting clarity. The next wanting to avoid everything entirely. That emotional tug-of-war has exhausted them. Because no matter how far they try moving away from the truth keeps following them. Quietly. Patiently. Relentlessly. And every path eventually leads back to the same realization. The same thought. The same feeling. The same unanswered question. And that question refuses to disappear. Because your heart needs this right now because unresolved feelings don't vanish simply because we ignore them. They wait. Sometimes for months. Sometimes for years. Until we finally listen. Your soulmate feels like they can no longer avoid listening. And listen to this. The urgency they feel isn't about panic. It isn't about pressure. It's about timing. The sense that a chapter is approaching its end. The sense that a choice must eventually be made. The sense that standing still forever is no longer possible. For too long, they have remained between two worlds. One world built on uncertainty. The other built on honesty. Now they feel themselves moving closer and closer toward honesty. And that realization feels both frightening and liberating. Because your heart needs this right now, because honesty changes everything. Once a person truly accepts what they feel, life begins moving differently. Choices become clearer. Priorities become clearer. The future becomes clearer. Your soulmate can feel that clarity approaching. And listen to this. Tonight, more than anything else, they wish one thing. Not certainty. Not perfection. Not guarantees. Understanding. They wish the depth of what they have been carrying could somehow be understood. The nights spent reflecting. The hours spent questioning. The countless moments spent wondering what everything means. Because this journey has changed them. More than anyone realizes. More than they expected. And now, standing on the edge of a final decision, they know one thing for certain. They cannot continue pretending forever. Something must change. Something will change. The only question is what happens next. And that answer is getting closer every day. If you enjoy spiritual and uplifting content, please subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after spending so much time carrying their thoughts in silence, your soulmate has reached a point where keeping everything inside feels impossible. Not because they want attention. Not because they want sympathy. Because the truth has become too heavy to carry alone. And listen to this. For a very long time, they believed silence was protecting them. Protecting them from disappointment. Protecting them from uncertainty. Protecting them from vulnerability. Every time their feelings became stronger, they convinced themselves to stay quiet. Every time a memory surfaced, they pushed it away. Every time their heart tried to speak, they found another distraction. For a while, that strategy worked. At least on the surface. But underneath? The feelings remained. Waiting. Growing. Becoming impossible to ignore. Because your heart needs this right now, because emotions rarely disappear when they are buried. They simply wait in the background until we are finally ready to face them. Your soulmate is beginning to face them now. And listen to this. The strange thing is that they never intended for you to become so important. They didn't plan it. They didn't expect it. They didn't even notice it happening at first. It happened gradually. Quietly. Naturally. One meaningful moment became another. One memory connected to another. One feeling quietly led to the next. Until eventually something changed. You stopped being just a person they knew. You became someone they thought about. Someone they remembered. Someone whose presence lingered long after conversations ended. And that realization surprised them. Because your heart needs this right now, because the most meaningful connections often grow in silence. Not with dramatic beginnings. Not with grand declarations. But through consistency. Through understanding. Through moments that seem ordinary at the time. Your soulmate is realizing how much those moments mattered. And listen to this. Lately, they've found themselves reflecting more than ever. Not because they want to live in the past. Because the past keeps offering clues. Clues they ignored. Clues they misunderstood. Clues they now see clearly. They remember moments that once felt small. Moments they barely thought about afterward. Yet those same moments somehow survived the passage of time. Years may pass. Circumstances may change. Life may move forward. Yet certain memories remain untouched. And yours remained. I truly hope this message found you well and provided the clarity you were seeking today. If this reading resonated with your spirit and you would like to offer an energy exchange, you can buy me a tea over on Ko-Fi. The link is right down in the description box. It is never expected, but always deeply appreciated, and it helps me continue offering these collective readings to you all. Because your heart needs this right now, because meaningful memories don't survive by accident. They survive because they are connected to something important. Something real. Something that left an impact. Your soulmate cannot ignore that impact anymore. And listen to this. One night recently, they found themselves asking a question they had never honestly answered before. Why does this still matter to me? At first, they searched for logical explanations. Maybe it was nostalgia. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was habit. Yet every explanation felt incomplete. Because none of those explanations explained the emotions. None of those explanations explained why thoughts of you still felt significant. None of those explanations explained why your memory still carried weight. Eventually they stopped looking for complicated answers. The simple answer was enough. Because you mattered. And that truth changed everything. Because your heart needs this right now, because simple truths are often the most powerful. We spend years searching for complicated explanations when the answer has been obvious all along. Your soulmate is finally accepting the obvious. And listen to this. Accepting that truth was not easy. In fact, it was frightening. Because once someone admits what matters to them, they become vulnerable. Suddenly there is something to lose. Suddenly there is uncertainty. Suddenly there is risk. For years they avoided that vulnerability. For years they avoided those risks. But now? Avoiding them feels harder than facing them. And that is a major change. Because your heart needs this right now, because growth begins when fear loses its position as the decision maker. Fear can offer advice. Fear can offer warnings. But fear cannot be allowed to control everything. Your soulmate is learning that lesson. And listen to this. As the days pass, they feel themselves moving closer to honesty. Not perfect honesty. Real honesty. The kind that asks difficult questions. The kind that demands truthful answers. The kind that refuses to accept excuses. And every time they ask those questions, the same answer appears. You mattered more than they admitted. More than they expected. More than they understood at first. The realization returns repeatedly. Like a message that refuses to stop appearing. And every time it returns, it becomes harder to deny. Because your heart needs this right now, because repeated truth eventually becomes certainty. The heart keeps repeating what the mind tries to ignore. Until eventually the mind listens. Your soulmate is finally listening. And listen to this. The silence they once relied on no longer feels comfortable. Now it feels unfinished. Like a sentence without an ending. Like a story missing its final chapter. Like a question waiting for an answer. And that unfinished feeling follows them everywhere. During quiet moments. During busy moments. During ordinary days. During sleepless nights. The awareness remains. The truth remains. The feelings remain. Because your heart needs this right now, because unresolved emotions rarely disappear on their own. They ask to be acknowledged. They ask to be understood. They ask to be faced honestly. Your soulmate knows that now. And listen to this. The final decision they are approaching isn't really about another person. It's about themselves. About whether they continue hiding from their own truth. Or finally embrace it. About whether they continue carrying these feelings in silence. Or finally allow themselves to acknowledge what they mean. That decision feels closer than ever. And each passing day seems to bring greater clarity. Greater understanding. Greater honesty. The confusion is fading. The truth is becoming stronger. And that truth keeps pointing in the same direction. Toward the memories. Toward the feelings. Toward the connection they can no longer dismiss. Toward you. And for the first time in a very long time, they are no longer asking whether the truth exists. They already know it does. Now they are asking what they will do about it. If this message is touching your heart, take a moment to like this video and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after carrying their truth in silence for so long, your soulmate has started feeling something they never expected. A sense of urgency. Not panic. Not pressure. Urgency. The feeling that life is moving forward whether they are ready or not. The feeling that time is quietly asking for an answer. And listen to this. For a long time, your soulmate believed there would always be another day. Another week. Another month. Another opportunity. Whenever difficult feelings appeared, they postponed dealing with them. Whenever important questions surfaced, they promised themselves they would think about them later. Whenever honesty felt uncomfortable, they delayed it. And for a while, that seemed harmless. After all, what difference could a little more time make? But lately, something has changed. They've begun realizing that time isn't standing still. Life isn't waiting. The future isn't pausing while they decide what they want. Everything keeps moving. Everything keeps changing. And suddenly, waiting doesn't feel as comfortable as it once did. Because your heart needs this right now, because there comes a moment when people realize that avoiding a decision is still a decision. Choosing not to act is still a choice. Choosing not to speak is still a response. Your soulmate is beginning to understand that now. And listen to this. Recently, they found themselves reflecting on the years behind them. The choices they made. The opportunities they missed. The moments they embraced. The moments they allowed to pass. And one realization kept appearing. Some of their biggest regrets were not mistakes. They were missed chances. The words they never said. The feelings they never expressed. The risks they never took. That realization stayed with them. Because suddenly they saw a pattern. Whenever fear made the decisions, regret often followed. Whenever honesty guided them, peace eventually followed. And that understanding changed something inside them. Because your heart needs this right now, because regret is a powerful teacher. If you like what I do and want to support the channel, I have a Ko-Fi page linked below. You can leave a tip up to $120, kind of like buying me a virtual coffee. It doesn't just remind us what happened. It teaches us what truly matters. Your soulmate has been learning from those lessons. And listen to this. As they thought about the future, another question appeared. A difficult question. A question they couldn't easily answer. If nothing changes, how will I feel a year from now? The question sat heavily in their heart. Because deep down, they already knew. They knew that continuing to ignore their truth wouldn't create peace. They knew that endless waiting wouldn't create clarity. They knew that silence wouldn't magically solve everything. And for the first time, they stopped pretending otherwise. That honesty felt uncomfortable. Yet it also felt freeing. Because your heart needs this right now, because acceptance is often the first step toward change. Before anything improves, people must first acknowledge reality. Your soulmate is finally doing that. And listen to this. The urgency they're feeling isn't about losing control. It's about realizing that life is precious. Moments are precious. Opportunities are precious. And meaningful connections are precious. For years, they assumed important things would always be there tomorrow. Now they understand something different. Tomorrow is never guaranteed. The future is never guaranteed. The only thing anyone truly possesses is the present moment. That realization has transformed the way they think. Transformed the way they feel. Transformed the way they view the choices ahead. Because your heart needs this right now, because awareness changes priorities. The things that once seemed important become less important. The things that truly matter become impossible to ignore. Your soulmate is experiencing that shift. And listen to this. One evening, while sitting alone, they imagined themselves years into the future. Older. Wiser. Looking back on this exact chapter of their life. And they asked themselves, what advice would my future self give me? The answer surprised them. Their future self wasn't asking for certainty. Their future self wasn't asking for guarantees. Their future self was asking for courage. The courage to be honest. The courage to acknowledge what matters. The courage to stop hiding from the truth. That answer stayed with them long after the question ended. Because deep down, they knew it was right. And your heart needs this right now, because courage often becomes necessary when something truly matters. Easy choices rarely require bravery. Meaningful choices almost always do. Your soulmate feels that now. And listen to this. The closer they move toward their final decision, the clearer everything becomes. The confusion is fading. The overthinking is fading. The endless internal debates are fading. Not because every answer has appeared. Because one important truth has finally become undeniable. The truth they spent so long avoiding. The truth they spent so long questioning. The truth they spent so long trying to explain away. That truth remains. Strong. Steady. Unchanged. No matter how much time passes. No matter how much life changes. No matter how many distractions appear. And that realization is impossible to ignore. Because your heart needs this right now, because genuine truths have a remarkable quality. They survive. They survive doubt. They survive distance. They survive confusion. They survive time. Your soulmate has watched this truth survive all of those things. And listen to this. Before we wrap up, I want to mention our current channel goal. We are currently trying to raise enough on Ko-Fi to fund the next major project. If you want to be a part of making that happen, click the Ko-Fi link down in the description. You can see our progress bar right on the page. Thank you to everyone who has already contributed. You are making this possible. Now, standing on the edge of a final decision, they feel something unexpected. Not fear. Not panic. Not uncertainty. Responsibility. Responsibility to themselves. Responsibility to their own happiness. Responsibility to their own truth. For too long, they placed everyone else's opinions ahead of their own feelings. For too long, they treated their own heart as if it were the least important voice in the room. Not anymore. Because they finally understand something powerful. The life they are building belongs to them. The future they create belongs to them. And the consequences of every decision will belong to them as well. That realization has changed everything. And your heart needs this right now, because true growth begins when people stop outsourcing their decisions and start trusting themselves. Your soulmate is learning how to trust themselves. Perhaps for the first time. And listen to this. The reason this feels urgent isn't because they are rushing. It's because they are finally ready. Ready to stop pretending. Ready to stop avoiding. Ready to stop carrying unanswered questions forever. Ready to stop living in uncertainty. The chapter of waiting is ending. The chapter of honesty is beginning. And although they don't know exactly what the future holds, they know one thing for certain. They can no longer ignore what their heart has been trying to say. Not now. Not anymore. Because some truths wait patiently for years. But eventually, they ask to be acknowledged. And your soulmate feels that moment has finally arrived. Sharing these insights with you is my life's passion. I am committed to keeping these profound spiritual concepts accessible to everyone for free. If you are in a place of financial abundance and feel called to support my work, leaving a tip in my Ko-Fi jar helps ensure I can keep this content free for those who are currently struggling. Don't skip. Listen carefully. This message is for you, and your heart needs this right now, because after all the waiting, all the wondering, all the sleepless nights, and all the emotions they tried so hard to hide, your soulmate has finally reached the moment they have been moving toward for a very long time. The moment of decision. The moment where uncertainty can no longer remain in control. The moment where silence can no longer provide comfort. The moment where truth must finally be acknowledged. And listen to this. For so long, your soulmate lived between hope and doubt. One day they felt certain. The next day they felt confused. One moment they believed everything would eventually make sense. The next moment they questioned everything. That emotional cycle continued for longer than anyone realizes. Longer than they ever expected. Yet despite all the confusion, one thing remained strangely consistent. No matter how many times they tried moving forward without thinking about it, the same truth kept returning. The same feelings. The same memories. The same connection. The same person. You. Join our spiritual community by subscribing and keeping notifications on, so you never miss a message meant for your soul. Because your heart needs this right now, because genuine feelings do not disappear simply because they are ignored. Real emotions have a way of surviving every attempt to escape them. Your soulmate has discovered that firsthand. And listen to this. The final decision approaching is not really about choosing between two people. It is not really about choosing between two paths. It is much deeper than that. The decision is about choosing between fear and honesty. Between silence and truth. Between hiding and acceptance. For years, fear had the louder voice. Fear always had reasons. Fear always had warnings. Fear always had explanations. Wait a little longer. Think a little more. Protect yourself. Avoid disappointment. And for a while, those arguments sounded convincing. But lately something has changed. The voice of truth has become stronger. Much stronger. And now fear no longer sounds wise. Fear sounds tired. Because your heart needs this right now, because eventually fear runs out of new arguments. Eventually the heart becomes impossible to silence. Your soulmate has reached that point. And listen to this. Recently they found themselves imagining two futures. The first future looked familiar. A future where nothing changed. A future where they remained silent. A future where they continued carrying unanswered questions. At first glance it seemed safe. Comfortable. Predictable. Yet the longer they imagined it, the heavier it felt. Because deep down they knew something important would always be missing. Closure. Honesty. Truth. And without those things, peace felt impossible. Then they imagined another future. A future where they stopped hiding. A future where they trusted themselves. A future where they allowed honesty to guide them. That future was uncertain. But it felt alive. And that difference mattered. Because your heart needs this right now, because peace rarely comes from avoiding reality. Peace comes from facing reality honestly. Your soulmate finally understands that. And listen to this. As the days passed, another realization appeared. A realization that changed everything. They realized they had spent years asking the wrong question. For years they asked, what if things don't work out? But now they ask, what if I spend the rest of my life wondering what could have happened? That question hit differently. Because suddenly they understood something important. Failure can heal. Disappointment can heal. Heartbreak can heal. But endless wondering often lasts forever. And they no longer want to live inside endless wondering. Because your heart needs this right now, because unanswered questions can become emotional ghosts. They follow people. They revisit memories. They return during quiet moments. Your soulmate is tired of carrying those ghosts. And listen to this. The closer they move toward their decision, the calmer they become. Not more nervous. Not more confused. Calmer. Because clarity creates peace. And clarity has finally arrived. Not perfect clarity. Human clarity. The understanding that some things matter. The understanding that some people matter. The understanding that life is too short to spend forever pretending otherwise. Your soulmate has accepted that truth. And it has changed them. Changed the way they think. Changed the way they see the future. Changed the way they see themselves. Because your heart needs this right now, because honesty transforms people. Not instantly. But permanently. Once someone becomes honest with themselves, they can never fully return to denial. Your soulmate crossed that line. And listen to this. There is one message they wish could reach you before the final decision is made. One message they have carried quietly for far too long. Not a message of pressure. Not a message of guilt. Not a message of obligation. A message of truth. The truth that this connection mattered. The truth that this journey mattered. The truth that the memories mattered. The truth that your presence changed something within them. Whether you realized it or not. Whether you intended to or not. Whether words were ever spoken or not. You left an impact. A real impact. And that impact became impossible to ignore. Because your heart needs this right now, because sometimes people change our lives without realizing it. They teach us things. They inspire growth. They help us understand ourselves. Your soulmate believes you became one of those people. And listen to this. As they stand on the edge of this new chapter, they are no longer asking for certainty. They are no longer searching for guarantees. They are no longer waiting for perfect timing. Instead, they are embracing something much simpler. Truth. The truth of what they feel. The truth of what they learned. The truth of what they can no longer deny. And that truth has become their compass. Their guide. Their answer. For the first time in a very long time, they trust it. Fully. Because your heart needs this right now, because trust begins within. Before people trust a future, they must trust themselves. Before people trust a path, they must trust their own heart. Your soulmate has finally reached that place. And listen to this. Whatever happens next, one thing is already certain. They are no longer the same person they were when this journey began. The waiting changed them. The reflection changed them. The lessons changed them. The emotions changed them. And most importantly, the truth changed them. Now they understand what matters. Now they understand what deserves honesty. Now they understand that some decisions cannot be delayed forever. The time for waiting is ending. The time for truth has arrived. And before taking that final step, before turning the page to the next chapter, there is one final thing they hope reaches your heart. You mattered more than you know. You influenced more than you realize. You became part of a story that will never be forgotten. And whether the future brings answers, closure, healing, or a brand new beginning, the truth remains the same. If you enjoyed this video and want to help me keep making content, consider buying me a coffee over on Ko-Fi. The link is in the description. Every single contribution goes directly back into upgrading the channel, whether that is new equipment or just keeping me caffeinated during these long